What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Swoop Luke. In this episode, we'll be going over the AFLW Round 5 win against the Bulldogs, and the AFL boys lost to the Saints in the second Marsh game. So let's roll that intro, jump straight into it. Just before we do jump straight into it, if you're new here, firstly, welcome. Secondly, if you could please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever I release a video. And if you're a returning swooper, welcome back. Alright, now for real, let's jump straight into it. So, up in Morwell, or down in Morwell, depending on where you're located geographically, it was a doubleheader with both of the Collingwood teams going up against their respective opponents. First off, we had the Collingwood girls playing off against the Western Bulldogs. This was a must-win game. We are sitting outside of the top three that you need to make finals for the conference. So we needed to win, and we needed to win well because Melbourne and Carlton, Freo are a little bit untouchable at the moment, but Melbourne and Carlton have got a decent percentage, and they won big on the weekend. Thankfully, we did get the win, and it was pretty much the Chloe Molloy show, especially, in that first half, especially in that first quarter where she kicked two great goals. But in saying that, Bree Davey also stood up, 30 disposals, 10 tackles, the first girl to ever do that in AFLW history, so huge congrats to her. That's a great feat. And obviously, ball magnet Jamie Lambert does what Jamie Lambert does. Sarah Rowe, Britt Benici on her birthday kicked ass as well. Shani Layden, all the usual suspects, and a couple of the other girls. It was a really well done team performance. Like I just made mention to, our first half was phenomenal. We kicked 4 goals in the, up till halftime to the Bulldogs' 0 in a bit of a wet sort of condition in Morwell. And then it was only how much we were going to win by from there. The Bulldogs never looked like threatening. We were about 30 points up during the third quarter. They chopped us down to about 19 points before Chloe Molloy kicked her third goal. And then we went on to win by 32 points. It was a really good team performance, blocking out any sort of Bulldog attack that they would have. And, us just attacking, which was different to the last 2 weeks where we did have a lot of the ball, a lot of the possession, a lot of the inside 50s, but we just weren't making any sort of use of it in the forward line. So that's when Steve Simmons, the coach, swung Chloe Molloy up forward. She talked about being that X Factor up there, and that's exactly what she was, evident by her 3 goals and 2 goals in the first quarter, really setting her up. So for my likes, Chloe Molloy's 3 goals, I've talked about her numerous times already in this video. Love her in the midfield when she's there. She's a great ball winner, and she's really smart with her disposals, but we need her up forward as that X Factor because it was evident, from before the season started that we did lack that big X Factor up front. We have Bree Davey, Lambert, Rowe, all taking in that midfield role that Chloe does have, but now her up in the forward line is a must. Like I mentioned before, Bree Davey had one of her best games in the black and white, 30 disposals, 10 tackles, clearance machine as well, and 4 inside 50, so she's creating the options for the forwards. Sarah Rowe kicked 2 goals, our running machine. Really liked her efforts. Britt Benici on her birthday, like I said, kicked ass. And Jamie Lambert is just, she set the standard for the Collingwood team from the start of the season, and she just keeps on going. What I also did like was our tackle count. We smashed the Bulldogs by about 20 plus tackles. Bree Davey laid 10 tackles, Ebony O'Day laid 9, Jamie Lambert laid 7. I love that we've become this very offensive side, but we're also a very good defensive and a tackling side. And that's just all down to Steve Simmons' master plan pretty much. We just came out firing straight out of the blocks, and the Bulldogs could not match our intensity or the way that we attacked the ball, and we just really suffocated them whenever they tried to go forward and through their midfield. So 1 vote, Sarah Rowe, full of run, over 20 disposals, laid 4 tackles, 4 inside 50s, and kicked 2 goals for herself. It was a toss-up between 2 votes and 3 votes, but 2 votes I'm going to give to Chloe Molloy. 3 goals, 2 lively up forward, just obviously I can't talk highly enough of her. And 3 votes to Brianna Davey. Bunch of clearances, 4 inside 50s, the 30 disposals, the 10 tackles. And I love that more, the 10 tackles, than I do love the 30 disposals. Just shows that Yes, she can amass a lot of the ball, but she's willing to put in the hard yards, lay a tackle, and help the team out. So next week we verse the Lions. They're in Conference A, because obviously we play, for Conference A and Conference B. We are still one win out of the top three. Like I mentioned, Fremantle on top of Conference B, then Melbourne, then Carlton. We have 3 games left of the season. We play Brisbane, St Kilda, and then Geelong. So every game is a must-win game now. What's going to work in our favour is that Carlton they look to be the only gettable side out of that top 3. They verse Melbourne, who's sitting in second. West Coast, bottom of the Conference B ladder. And then Fremantle, obviously undefeated at the top. They're sitting at about 149%. We're sitting at 137%. And Melbourne are like 220 or something. So Carlton are the only gettable team. If all goes our way and we play the way that we've been playing this season, we will make finals for the first time in the AFLW. All right, now it's time for the boys' game against the Saints. So in our final pre-season hit-out in the Marsh community, we versed the Saints down in Moora straight after the AFLW game. We outplayed the Saints for the first half before they came out after half-time, really put the sting on us. We only scored 1 goal in the third quarter to their 3. And just as the Saints got on top by about 12 points in the fourth quarter, we kicked a couple, we started leading, and then the Saints came back, and ultimately we lost by just under 2 goals. And I wouldn't put too much weight into it, but there are a couple of things that I do want to talk about though. It was really good seeing all 5 of the Origin boys come back. Stuart Sidebottom has to play as a mainly half-forward flanker. Last year, he wasn't as impactful as he was in 2018. I think because he copped pretty much a hard tag for most of the games. But I see him as a better forward now than in the midfield. We do have a bigger midfield brigade that can support him. But he's just so smart around goal in the forward line. Kicked 2 goals too yesterday. I think, and there's a couple of guys on Instagram saying the same thing, around 70% of his time should be spent in the forward line. Our back line is pretty sound. Jeremy Howe, Jack Crisp, Chris Mayne when he's down playing half-back, utility, can literally play anywhere, and Darcy Moore. They all did well yesterday. These conditions were so-so, a ground that they're not used to. The Saints looked like they came out to play, making a little bit of a statement. We pulled the pin on a couple of the guys, Pendles and Adams and stuff, throughout the game. So we didn't come to win. A win would have been nice to finish off the preseason, but we didn't come to win, come to troll a few things. But yeah, like I said, our back line was really sound. Another thing I really liked was with Adam Treloar, obviously not going to play round 1 unless some sort of miracle happens to his hamstring. Buckley and the coaches put DeGoey into the midfield for more time than I guess they really wanted to at this early stage of the season. Buckley came out last week, said he didn't have that sort of capacity to be like an Adams or a Treloar in that midfield, but looks like that's what they're building him up to. The switching between Elliott and DeGoey is just going to be something that we're going to love this season. Elliott, I love him in the midfield. Obviously watched him up in Richmond, and then this game yesterday as well. But DeGoey is a bull in the midfield, bull in the forward line, so having them being able to swap like that, it's going to cause headaches to our opposition. I was a little bit critical on Dacos last year, but in these last 2 preseason games, he's really staked his claim for round 1, and I can't see why he wouldn't be in that team. He's put up really good numbers in these last 2 games. Yesterday, he went over 20 disposals, 4 tackles, 9 marks, 1 goal. It looks like he's come to play. This could be either a breakout year or he won't be there by year's end, but I'm not writing obituaries at the moment. It's hard to say there was a lot to dislike about yesterday's game, despite the loss. Yes, everyone dislikes a loss. Doesn't matter if it's pre-season or during the season or an intra-club match. That's a joke. But despite the loss, there are a few things that we can tighten up. Our efficiency inside 50 is definitely an area that needs to be looked at. We went inside 50 over 40 times for only 12 scoring shots. So that's about 29 to 30% of the scoring when we're inside 50. Definitely something that needs to be looked at, because obviously scoring goals or behinds wins you games. So if you're going 30% when you're inside 50 with nearly 50 inside 50s, that's no good. We've got a very good forward line, and I know it's only preseason, but they will need to start firing come round one. Another dislike, I think he might still be struggling with his fitness because of that glandular fever that hit him over the preseason. Jaden Stevenson didn't have a big game or at all yesterday, but you give him the benefit of the doubt. Didn't play last week due to personal reasons, and I think, yeah, the glandular fever kind of hit him hard, but I can't see him not starting in round one. I think we did well in this preseason. The 40-plus point Richmond win, only a 2-goal loss to St Kilda. Lots of guys stood out in the first game. It was Mark Keane, Darcy Cameron. Johnny Noble stood out in both games. You can see what a preseason at an AFL club does. Obviously, he was our mid-season recruit. And I think the likes of Adams is just only going to get better. Injured to his hip, but Buckley reckons he'll start round one, so there's not much to worry about. They just rested him. And I'm really liking that Cox took a couple of good marks this game, didn't have a good conversion game, but against Richmond, taking big marks, bringing the ball to ground, and that's exactly what you need from your big man. And it's kind of clear that the coaching staff, for whatever reason, prefer Wills and Tyler Brown over Sire, who played in the VFL, along with Scharenberg as well, who played in the VFL. So thank you all for tuning in to this double header. When the season starts, I'm going to be doing separate videos because this is just a lot. Also coming in the next 2 weeks is my predictions video for the AFL season in general, and then a Collingwood season preview. So look out for those. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double shackers, I'll swoop you later. Just before we do strump, oh my, strump, or our attacking prowess, they chopped our lead down. We were, fuck me. And who could be a start in our 22, fuck, Jesus Christ.